Hey guys, Super Retrocade here. I thought I'd do another video on the Mister. The Mister is a FPGA based emulation machine for playing a bunch of retro video game systems. It's based on the D10 Nano. That's the main board that drives this. And I have a previous video about the Mister if you want to know more about it, but kind of what I wanted to show, I just kind of want to do an update on a few things. So one thing is I got myself a case. So what I ended up doing was I bought the official Mister case, but then since I had installed this bigger Noctua fan on mine, I didn't have enough clearance to put the factory top on it. So what I ended up doing was on Etsy, there's a seller who is selling these acrylic top plates in a bunch of different colors. So I just got some taller standoffs and I bought a blue one to put on the top, which was pretty inexpensive. I think it was like maybe 10 bucks or something. And that way I was able to keep my big fan on it, which I was pretty excited about. Because, I don't know, I just kind of take a little bit of pride in being able to modify that fan and stuff to get it going. And then, right now, the version of the official case that I have is set up for the USB hub, because the blister hasn't come out yet. So what the blister is right now I'm using this USB hub, and then I have the fast USB polling turned on, and then I'm using these Raphnet USB to SNES controller adapters, and they're working wonderfully, and there's not very much lag at all in that scenario. But what the blister is going to do is the blister is going to allow you to do very, very low latency input. We're talking like 20 nanoseconds, like a human would never feel it type of input lag through blister. And then the way that blister works is, instead of using like USB to whatever adapters, blister has its own adapters for all different consoles. So I'll like replace this USB board with a blister board, and then I'll have adapters to connect all kinds of different controllers from original systems, and there will be like no lag at all. So in anticipation of that, I also have the panels for the official Mister case for the blister, so that when I get that, I'll be able to replace the USB section, the USB panels, with blister panels. So I'm pretty excited for that. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was, in my last video, I wasn't able to get all the arcade cores and stuff working. So what I ended up doing was I followed a YouTube video about how to configure your SD card for Mister. And I just kind of started from scratch, and I actually put a bigger SD card in it. I think I have like a 256 gig in it now. And I went through their process and used the retro-driven script and everything, and now I've got all the arcade stuff working perfectly. And another thing I did was I signed up for, there's this guy named Joe Tego, and he is developing a bunch of Mister cores, and he has a Patreon where he gives Patreon backers first access to his cores and stuff. So I signed up for his Patreon so that I could get the CPS1 core from Mister. So I'm just gonna plug it in here, if I can do this one-handed. There we go. And then I'm gonna turn her on. just kind of show you guys. Let's get my tripod. So I have the Wi-Fi adapter plugged in and everything. That's why it just came up with the date and time. So I pulled that from the internet. There we go. So then, like, because of Jotego's Patreon, I have this CPS1 core. So I'm able to go in here. And the game I really wanted to play was this Magic Sword game. So I'll just kind of show you a bit of gameplay of this. And I'll have links to a lot of this stuff in my in the comment or in the description below. You know, where I got the top for my case. Oop. There we go. Where I got the top for my case and what video I watched to help me configure my SD card properly. And I'll probably link to Jotego's Patreon. And I could link to Mister Addons where I bought the official cases. But yeah, Mister just keeps getting better. You know, even today I was looking at a TurboGrafx 16 and you know, it's kind of like, why when we have Mister? You know, the TurboGrafx CD will probably be any minute now, so there's not much point for me to go and get a TurboGrafx. Another thing that's kind of been going on is they've come up with a way of doing analog video without having the I/O board. I guess there's some cable you can get and then put the HDMI output in a certain mode to where it'll actually output like analog signals over HDMI for this cable. And I guess there's been like questions whether or not it's safe with different CRT monitors and stuff, as far as like the levels it's outputting and this and that. So I already have the I/O board, and being able to do analog stuff on this is a big thing for me. So I would just stick with the analog I/O board. Another thing is if you wanted to like play on a CRT and do video capture at the same time, you can't do that unless you have the I/O board. So I think the I/O board is worth it. This is a game that I really wanted to play for a while. This is the arcade version of 1943. Because actually, when I first set up my Raspberry Pi, and hooked it up in my arcade cabinet, one of the first games that I got working in May 2003 was 1943, and I kind of discovered what a fun game this is. So it's kind of cool now to be playing like an absolutely accurate version of it at home. And I can't imagine when Mister gets to the point where we've got like Simpsons arcade and X-Men arcade and stuff. I mean, that'll be really crazy once we can start playing those arcade games. Ooh. I don't know if this thing will ever get to a point where we can play like NFL Blitz or something, but just getting like Simpsons and X-Men would be enough for me. And honestly, one of my favorite things to play on here is to just play Rocket Knight. I like playing Rocket Knight on here using my SNES controller. Let's see. Yeah, Rocket Knight USA version. It's pretty sweet to play this with a Super. At first I thought that it was like absolutely amazing to play this with a Super Nintendo controller, but then I went back to a Genesis controller and that felt really good too. So maybe it's not as big of a deal as I originally thought. But it's kind of crazy that this never came out on Super Nintendo, because this is such an awesome game. And the Super Nintendo version of Sparkster, which is like, it's like a sequel to this game, but it's different. It's got so much slowdown on Super Nintendo that it just sucks. And the sequel on Genesis I have too. And the Sparkster on Genesis isn't very good either. It's a little better than the Super Nintendo one, but I mean, this first game, Rocket Knight Adventures, is just so awesome. Ooh. Another thing that's cool about Mister is, like, if you were thinking about getting like a GBA consolizer, like, there's like no point now. I mean, because I think the only thing that the GBA consolizer has is it has this like horizontal and vertical scan line mode that really recreates that Game Boy Advance screen well. But I don't know if if this core has it yet in Mister, but I'm sure there's going to be a filter to get that same thing on the Mister here. Plus GBA consolizer, you don't get analog output, where I could play this on my CRT. I don't know if that would be cool to play Game Boy Advance on a CRT, but I could do it. I don't know, it's just crazy how cool Mister is. And I was pretty apprehensive for a long time about getting a Mister, just because it is kind of daunting. Like, it is a lot of money. Because, I mean, there's a bunch of little pieces that don't cost a whole lot by themselves, but I probably have like $600 into this Mister at this point, just decking it out. And one of the hurdles for me was, like, I kept buying all the little parts. Like, I'd buy the I/O board, and I'd buy the memory, and I'd buy the Wi-Fi adapter, and I'd get a USB hub. But then, like, actually, like, paying the $140 for the D10 Nano itself, that kind of took me a while to get to that point where I'd actually buy the FPGA. And even when I bought it, I wasn't sure if I was going to return it or keep it or what. Because I own a lot of these systems and a lot of these games already. And I wasn't sure just how redundant this would be. But, you know, there's a couple things on here, like playing these Game Boy Advance games, or playing Genesis with a Super Nintendo controller, or playing arcade emulators. I mean, not emulators, but playing, you know, cycle accurate arcade games. I mean, it just kind of gets to the point where there's going to be something that you don't have, you know. Or like getting a Turbo Graphics or a Sega Saturn. Like, I don't have either of those. and you know, why would I when I have a Mister? And I'm kind of at the point where I don't really want more systems in my setup, because it's already hard enough to maintain the systems I have, you know. And you know, I have different component switchers, and like the most ports they ever do are 8, and it's like I don't really want to keep adding systems. And you know, at some point, like just having like outlets would be a problem, or having enough power strips chained together, you know. So I kind of see like Mister being a pretty versatile part of my setup too. I mean, there's definitely value to Mister. I mean, if you came into, you know, retro gaming today and you didn't have any games or any consoles or any desire to do, you know, soldering or mod work or anything like that, I mean, Mister is absolutely the avenue to go down, because there's so many things on Mister where you can point to a $300 product that it replaces, you know. I mean, like this does Sega CD, you know, and the Mega SD is $300, you know, plus you need a Genesis, plus you need, you know, HD Retrovision cables and all this stuff. Or if you look at Neo Geo is like $1,000 for a decked out Neo Geo, and this has it. And what'll be really cool with Blister is the ability to use those original controllers for everything. That's when you'll really start seeing, that's when it will really be like parity with using the real systems. And I'm just getting rocked in this. Plus there's other cool things about Mister, like if I go back to that Genesis core, like in this Genesis core, you know, you can go in here and you can change what model Genesis's audio you're getting. You know, like I have a Model 2. I don't even know which chip is in my Model 2, but it's like you can specify what, you know, if you're someone who says only the Model 1 Genesis sounds correct, you can do that on Mister, which is insane. So this is Super Retrocade. That's just kind of my, you know, my Mister update. I'll have a bunch of links in the description to different things that I've found that are pretty cool. And I hope you enjoy this video. Thanks for watching.